Okay, now let's discuss about some control flows, or basically if-else statements, for loops, etc., or while loops, etc. Right? So let's start with if-else statements, right? So basically, what are if-else statements in Python? So this is basically, you're telling Python to do certain operation or you do certain things if certain condition is satisfied, else do something else, right? So let me demonstrate this. So let's say, so if, right? So that's how you write if else statement. So if something, if a statement happens, um, then do this, or else do this, right? This is a simple statement for if else, if else, simple if else statement in Python. um, so this is MENT. So in the statement you will put some condition, which if that is satisfied, if that becomes true, then Python will do this particular command or operation, whatever is it that you want to put here, it will execute that. If this is false, then that's why we have an else statement. It will do this, right? So let's demonstrate. So if um, 1 is equal to 2, if that is true, then you do 1. So let's say print 1 plus 2, yeah, or else uh, print 1 star 2, right? Let's see what happens here. So this will print 2 because we know that 1 is not equal to 2, right? So definitely this one will be skipped and it will execute the next one, which is basically inside the else statement. So it will print 1 star 2, which is 2, right? So this is a simple if else statement. Now, of course, you also have something called as else if. So let's demonstrate else if. So if 1 equal to 2, then maybe, print 1 plus 2, um, lf, lf 1 is equal to 1, right? Then print 1 star 3, um, or else print 5, right? So of course the output will be this one because you know Python will check if 1 is equal to 2, which is false, right? So it will not execute this, or we'll go to the next one. Else if it will check this condition, is 1 equal to 1? Yeah, that's true. So then it's going to execute this one, so basically 3. uh, if this were false, then it will go to the next one, right? But this is true, so it will execute this one, and that's it. So it won't go into the else statement, right? So um, let me demonstrate more complex examples. Instead of 1 and 2, you can also have any kind of condition, right? So let me first tell you something about user inputs, right? So let's imagine that you want a user to input something, right? So what you do is you just do the input and enter, uh, or let's say user input, right? First, let me show you what this thing is, right? If you do shift enter, you see here whatever I have put inside this input statement, it's being displayed here with a double dot. Double dot was here, right? So okay, so I think I ran into, okay, let's do that again. So you see user input, whatever is it that I've put inside the double quotes. Maybe if it was double colon was here, it will be here. So the point is, whatever is inside the brackets, it will be displayed here. And this one here, you can see you can type, right? So you can input whatever is it that you want to input, right? depending on this string, right? The instruction will be here. What is it that the Python is expecting you to put in here, right? So for now it's just user input. So let me just write some gibberish thing and then enter, right? Now what happens is that if you try to access X will have whatever is it that I have put here as the user input. It's being stored inside X as a string, right? To make it more clear, so X is input, enter your age, right? If you do this, if I press the age and if I try to output X, you see it has the age, but it's in strings, right? So it's in strings. Now let's imagine you want it to be in integers. Then what you do is you basically make this into an integer, right? So I've told you before how to convert something into an integer. So int of 27 is integer, right? So that's what you do here. Int of this user input, right? So basically it's converting whatever is it that the user is inputting here, converting it into the integer, and then X stores that one, right? So let's do shift enter 27, and if you try to access X, it's 27, and that's what you have, right? So now it's an integer, right? And the same thing, you can make it into a float if you want. So whatever be the input, you can convert it using int or float, and then that will be stored. So this is basically a user input, right? Now let's use this to so let's bring this down a little bit up, and let's use the if statement. So if X is bigger than, right? If X is bigger than 30, print. It need not be print. You can do other operations. Anything that you want, you can do with Python. You can put in here, right? So for now, let's just print something. So print you are, something, right? And else, let's say else if X is another condition. So when I say elif, right, elif happens, that means X is not bigger than 30, right? So what happens is that first Python will check this statement. If it is false, then it will go to next one, which is elif, right? So when you go into elif, it is clear that X is not bigger than 30, right? It's less than or equal to 30. And now let's say X is bigger than 25. Print you are I don't know, something, right? You can do this. This particular stage, I can add an else if I want, but let's keep it here. And the output is you are learning, right? So why is that so? Because I did put my X age to be 27, and then Python ran through this if else statement. So is X bigger than 30? No, right? So we'll go to the next one. Is X bigger than 25? Yes, right? So when it ran the second one, it is clear that X is not bigger than 30. Now it will check, is X bigger than 25? Yes, right? So then it will do the operation. That's whatever is it that is under this elif, right? So you're learning, right? Okay, so that is if else. Of course, I could have added another one, multiple elifs, right? If you want to add multiple elifs, then that's possible. Elif something else, right? So X is is it divisible by 2? Then do something, right? Print even. something like that. So you can have multiple elif and but only one else statement, right? One else. If else is for, if all of them are false, right? If none of them is true, then what will you do? So it will be print right, something like that. So basically you want to combine these two, right? So x maybe let's say 10, and then if you do this, it will output even age. So what it does is that Python will go through first this one, that's false, then this one, that's again false, it's not bigger than 25 either. Then we'll check this one. Of course it's divisible by 2, right? So we'll print it out. But note that the next one, right? For example, if I had lf x equal to 10, right? Then do this. So in this case, again it will show me even age, right? So because this was true, it will print it and that's it. It won't go into the next elif statement because this was true, right? But if I had x here, x equal to 10, and here x percent 2 is equal to 0. Now this time it will of course let me change something else. You want to change it altogether, right? So this time Python will go through this, and when it goes through this one, of course this is true, so you are out of bounds. It won't check the next one, right? Even if I had else statement at the end, it won't execute that, right? Else something, print. Of course, again, it won't do that, right? So that's this is basically an if-else statement which you can use in Python. It comes in real handy to deal with many things. For example, you can have the user to input, for example, their marks, right, that they got in their test, and then check if x is bigger than 30, then they have passed. Else if x is bigger than 25, they have failed, etc. Right? So you can create a simple program like that to check whether do some things depending on what the user has input, right? That's something which you can do. And yeah, so that's a basic if-else statement. Okay, so now I want to discuss about loops, for loops, and while loops. Okay, so to discuss this, again, it's loops, right? So basically it's looping through something for a long time, or maybe depending on whatever is number of times that you want it to loop through. So let me make it more clear. So I think before I go into loops, I want to introduce something called as range, right? This range object. So what is range? So let me put 0, 10, and then just do shift enter. So it will show me something called range 0, 10. So if I check the type of this one, then type is a range, right? So it's basically a range object. So if you try to make it into a list, you see what we have is 0, 1, 2 till 9, right? So basically it's the same thing as start and stop, right? So starting from 0 and ending before 10, which is 9, right? So of course there are 10 elements here, right? Starting from 0 till 9, right? So range is basically, if you want it's an iterable. So if you want to, for it, so range can store basically it has a start and it has a stop and it has a step as well. So here I did not put a step, so Python assumed it to be 1, but I can put a step, let's say 2, right? And then if I try to print it out list, So see 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. So 0 and then 1, 2, and then 1, 2. So 4 is here, 1, 2, 6 is here. So by the step of 2, it's printing it out, right? So this is range. So range, as I said before, it's a start, stop, and step. So you can have a start of some negative number as well, -1, ending at -10, and then stepping in the backward direction, so -1, right? So again, you can print it out. See, we have a list of the range, right? From -1 till -9. So always the end one is excluded, right? So this is the range object. It's an iterable. That means you can iterate over. So till now we have discussed lists, tuples, dictionaries, and strings. These are all iterables, right? Even range is an iterable. So iterable means that you can iterate through them, right? So when I discuss for loops, you can see what I mean by iterables, right? So maybe I can introduce what is a for loop. So what is a loop? What is a for loop? So for, right, that's how you start. For something in an iterable, okay, for something in an iterable, do this. This is a basic command for loop, right? So you're telling Python to do, you know, for something in this iterable, do this, right? So this something can be, anything. For example, I can just say I, or maybe it could be J, or maybe it can be K, or maybe it can be just something as well, something. That also I think it works. So let's see. For something in an iterable. So I said iterable, range is an iterable, 0, 10. Let's just print the something, right? You see, it's printing out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till 9, right? So basically, what this, whatever this is, so let me just convert it back to I, and here I, right? So output will be the same. So for I inside this iterable, so this stores values from 0 till 9. So you're asking Python to iterate over that and print I. As I varies from 0 to 9, you print that out, right? So this is basic for, right? Now I can make something else for I in range 10, 22, right? Print, or maybe just yeah, so let's do print I. So now I is iterating over these values 10 till 20 with a step of 2, right? So if you just look at list range 10, 22, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and that's what we have here, right? So it's basically iterating over and doing something, right? Now I must tell you that you cannot change this I inside the statement, right? So let me explain. So for I in range 10, 22, if I try to plus I plus so I is equal to I plus 1, right? If I do this and then print I, well, by writing this, I'm hoping that maybe when I was 10, initially it was 10, and when it goes inside it will become 11, right? And then it will print 11. But if I look at the output, what's happening here is, okay, so it's printing 11, then it goes back, but then when it goes back, it's not 11, it is 10, and then next one. So if I'll just print out list of range 10, 22, so 10, 12, 14, 16. So initially it was 11. When it goes back, I'm expecting it to be 11, and then it will increment by 2, right? So 11, then 12, 13. So it will become 13 here, and then it will go inside the loop 13 plus 1, 14, and print 14, but that's not what is happening here, right? So let me go through that again. So starting from 10, it will go inside, become 11, print 11. Yeah, that's what we have here. Again, it will go back. If I'm thinking that it's 11, then it should be 11 plus 2, then 11, 12, and 13, right? It will become 13 here. Then come inside, 13 plus 1 is 14, should be printing 14, but that's not what is happening here, right? So it's still 13, right? So initially it was 10, the next time I will be, 12, right? 12. So the result is 13, right? So the thing is, the point is, you cannot change I inside the loop, right? Here you cannot. Maybe you can change I to that instead of instance of I to I plus 1, and then you can print it out. But when it goes back, I will always assume the previous value of I that was stored, right? So for example, initially I was 10, right? And then next instance it will become, inside the loop, the I will become 11, right? And then it will print out 11, right? But then when it goes back to the for loop, and what will happen is that it will become 12, right? Instead of 11 plus 2, 13, it will become 12, and so it will print out inside will become 12 plus 1, 13, and then it will print out 13, right? So it remembers, so I remembers, or this for loop remembers the previous instance of I, and it will stick to that. Okay, that's how it will do the operation here. Okay, so that's for loop. Of course, I said before that for I for something in an iterable, right? So what are iterables? So we know that iterables can be lists, right? So for I in, let's create a list here, 1 2 3 comma st, print I. See, it's printing out the elements inside the list. So because list is an iterable, so you can do this. Again, I can do the same thing with a tuple, right? Print I, it will print it out, right? Because it's an iterable, so you can do it. Or maybe you want to create something for I in, let's say, names, right? Jack, Jenny, and then right, and then print good morning, and then comma, and then I dot title, right? And then when you do this, you see good morning, Jack, Ginny, and Zach, right? So okay, so inside the print statement you can print, so print, you can print many things. So 1 comma 2, it will do this, right? You can even have comma 3, it will do this, right? So you can print multiple things using print. So that's what I have done here. So print this string, and then print this next one, right? So which is basically I. So I is accessing elements inside the list. So first it's Jack, and then make it into a title. So remember how to, so in title, it's converting it's making it into a title, right? So basically the first character is capitalized. So for in this case, all of them are capitalized. So now it's making it into a capital, right? So this is what you can do with a for loop. And another thing that I wanted to mention was that when I was doing here I is equal to I plus 1, so let me write down here. So for I in 1 comma 2 comma 3, see, I, instead of writing I is equal to I plus 1, Python has a shortcut here, so instead I can just say plus equal to 1, right? And then print I, 2, 3, 4, right? So this command is telling Python that, you know what, increase I plus equal to 1, right? Increase I by 1. So this is a shorthand notation. So maybe if you wanted to just subtract, right? So the current instance of I, subtract 1 from it, and so this is the command, right? Or maybe you want to multiply with 1, then you do this, or maybe divide, you do this, right? So or maybe you can just say 2 to see the effect here. So basically initially it was 1, when you divide by 2 you get 0.5, and then you have 2 divided by 2 you have 1, then you have 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, right? So this is something which you can do inside a for loop. Now another thing is that strings are iterable, right? So what happens when I do for I in a string string, let's say print I. So I said that the whole thing is an iterable. So when you print I, see, it's accessing each and every character inside the string and it's just printing it out, right? string. So when you put this inside the for loop is accessing each and every character. So maybe if I had something, right, it will do that, right? It will access each and every one of them and then just print it out, right? Okay, so that's for strings. Now again, what happens if I put a dictionary? So for I in, let's say, dictionary name of, let's make it much more occupation is say data scientist, right? Okay, and now, so this, and then for I in print I. So let's see what is being printed out. Okay, so this time it's printing name, age, and occupation, which are the keys, right? So when you do for I in this dictionary, it's basically accessing the keys, right? Which is the way to access a dictionary, right? Through keys. In the case of a list, it's accessing the index, right? So for I in, so for I in the first one, that's 1, then 2, and then 3, right? In this case, it's accessing the keys instead, right? So but if I had made some changes here, okay, so with this statement for I in dictionary, I can access both the keys and values. For that I just need to do the following. So let me just give this a name. D is, or just profile is equal to let me just copy this, or control C and then control V. Okay, okay, now just need to delete this, and when I do shift, okay, before I do shift enter, this is profile, and print I. So remember, I is the key, so value will be profile of I, right? That's the value. When I do shift enter, see name Jack, age 27, occupation data scientist, right? So this is the way to print the items in a dictionary. But we have learned dictionary items, dictionary keys, and dictionary values, right? So for I in uh, profile dot items, print I. Let's try to print it out. So see, this time it's printing out the items. Remember, profile items, profile dot items, this is basically dictionary items, so it's it's a dictionary item, so it's here's a list inside which there are tuples of key value pairs, right? So this is again an iterable, so you can iterate through a for loop and you can access the items, or maybe you just want to access the keys or values. Let's say dot values print I. This will print out the values inside the dictionary, right? Or maybe you want to for I comma j in uh, profile dot items print I comma j. This is also possible. uh, it will print out the I and j. So when you say for ij in profile dot items, so items is here, so I is the key, j is the value, and then it will print it out, right? So it's accessing each and every item, and in that item your I will become the name, and the I will become the key, and the j will become the value. And this is another way to access the dictionary keys and values. And um, so let me just change this, and let's I think we have discussed for loops. I mean, of course we have discussed for loops, but we have discussed f strings, right? So f, and then you do the following. So the key is, and then you just do this, and the value is, and then you just put this curly brackets, and inside this you say I, and inside this you say j. Right now if you print it out, the key is name, the value is Jack. The key is age, the value is 27. The key is occupation, the value is data scientist, right? So f string is basically if you want to print out the a kind of variable inside a string. So basically you just do f, and then inside the curly bracket you can do I and j. Or else maybe you can also do the following. um, so this is basically using percentage, right? So mm, so percent s, and then here as well percent s, and here percent of I comma j. When you print it out, again it's the same thing. So what happens here is that instead of f string, I'm saying, I'm using percent s. So it will access the first one, which is I, and then the next one, which is j, right? So I think f string is much more convenient than this one, so I would prefer to use f strings. Okay, so now we have discussed a lot of for loops, right? Now I want to discuss something called as a while loop, right? As the name suggests, while, right? So what does it mean by while, right? So while means that, if something holds, right? If something holds, then it's a while, right? So while something do this, um, else do this. So this is the basic command for a for loop. Um, Sorry, for a while loop in Python. So while something happens, then do this, else do this. So let me just demonstrate. So let me define a variable called num, and then while num is let's say less than or equal to 10, then print um, print num. See what happens now is that okay, so this has gone into an infinite loop, which is not good for my machine here. Okay, so this is a blunder that I did. To stop this, I will have to, let's see, just, interrupt the kernel. Yeah, so this is something which we have to take care all the time to not go into an infinite loop. So what's an infinite loop? So you see here, what's happening here. If I just scroll down, it's printing me zeros forever, right? It will keep printing zero forever. This is because, see, while num is less than or equal to 10, which is always true, right? It's always true. And so print num. So Python will first try to check this. Is num less than or equal to 10? Num is 0. So yeah, it's true. So it will execute once, and then we'll go back again, check, is it less than or equal to 10? Yeah, so go back again, and it will keep going forever. So what I need to do is, so let me just, is it not? Okay, so I've restarted the kernel here, and now let's do this once again. So num is 0. Now while num less than or equal to 10, now this time I will have to increment it with 1 and then print num, right? So that now this is, it won't go into an infinite loop. It will stop at some time, right? So what's happening here? So while num is less than or equal to 10, do this operation, right? So inside the operation, you are increasing num by 1, so it becomes 2, then it becomes 3, 4, 5, etc. When it became 11, right? When it became 11, so it will print 11 and then just go back. But 11 is not less than or equal to 10, so it will stop. The loop will stop, right? So this is while loop, right? So while loop, you use while loop if you want, because a certain condition holds, then you want the loop to keep running, right? This is when you need while loop. Maybe for a practical example can be, maybe you want, a user to input something. So for example, let's say X is input, enter A to access info, or let's say enter A, right? Or Q to quit, right? Now this is an input, and now I'm saying while I'm giving a new code here. So while X is not, so while X is not equal to Q, what you do is you just ask, you just print this again. So copy here. So what will happen here is that it will ask the user again and again. So let me just show you. So A to access, so A. So when I press A, so first instance X is this, right? So I entered A, right? And then it will go into the loop. Is X not equal to Q? Yeah, that's true. So it will go inside, and again I'll ask for an input, A to access or Q to quit. So if I say A again, it will again go into the loop, then check, is X not equal to Q? That's again true, so it will go again until I press Q. When I press Q, so X will become Q, which will make this condition false, right? X is equal to Q, right? So this will become false, and then will break the loop, right? So this is something which you can use in program in your code to keep asking the user for something unless you want the desired input from the user, right? Right. So that's something which you can use with the while loop. And now let me just write down a simple code, to test whether inside a list, if you want to check for some number to be negative number or not, right? So let's say numbers is -2, -4, 24, right? And this is number. And now for, you will use a for loop to access elements inside this. For num in numbers, right? So num is you can use anything, right? For I, or for I in numbers, what you do is you want to figure out the negative number. So for I in numbers, if num is less than 0, then you just print print found negative number and use an f string, and then num, right? Or okay, I want to make it into a num, right? Do that. Else what you do is or let's say if okay, let's say else print, if it's not a negative number, then maybe you can just, okay, there's no need to even put an else statement here, right? It can also work. Okay, so that is something which I want to tell you as well. So for now, let's put an else statement. Else, print n, right? Something like this. Now let's do a shift enter. So this loop will go through the numbers. So 1, 0, -2, 4, -4, and 24. So if num is less than or equal to 0, right, then print a negative number is found. So when it becomes -2, it found a negative number which is -2, so it will print it out. And in the same case, when same is the case when -4, it will print it out. But all the other elements, it's just printing n, right? So this is something which you can use to figure out negative numbers. Okay, now I also, maybe we can change the thing here, change the list, and you can also add a 0 here and then say elif num is equal to 0. Then let's say if you encounter 0, you want the loop to just break down, right? If you want the loop to just quit, and you don't want the for loop to keep running for the rest of the elements. If there was there were a lot of other elements, you don't want to access them, right? If you had just one hit of 0, you want the program to just quit. For that, what we'll use is we'll use something called as a break statement, right? So I just need to put a break here. So what it does is that, you see, if num is less than 0, then it will print this as always, as normal thing. But if it's 0, if it encounters 0, then I have a break statement. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so it's okay, maybe I can even print a star just to show you. You see here, so initially it was 1, so and then the Python will check, is 1 less than 0? No. Elif 1 is equal to 0, that's also false. So then it will just go into second one, which is -2. -2 is a negative number, right? So we'll print out found a negative number. Then the next one is 0. But when it is 0, we said print star and then break. So what break will do is that it will break out of the loop, the immediate, the loop that is running, right? So this is the loop that's just immediately over all these statements, right? I'm saying immediate because there could be even further for loops above, so we'll go into that later. But break means it will break the loop, it will stop there, it will run, it won't allow Python to go further, right? So we'll just break it out. So that's where you want to use a break statement. Or maybe you want to just skip the 0, let's say, right? So let me write down another code. Numbers is the same. So for num in numbers, you want to print. So if num is equal to 0, then you want to do something, right? And elif, if it's not 0, then just print I, right? So let's say when you encounter a 0, you want the program to not print the 0, right? So you want it to skip it, right? So what you can do is you can I mean, one way is that, of course, you can make this code much simpler, but let's to demonstrate something called as continue, right? there's something called as continue. So basically, continue means that when you encounter that particular value, that particular num, right? So when num is 0, this is telling the for loop to just continue, right? Just it won't execute the remaining code which is downstairs, right? Just continue. That's what it says. So go further, right? So when you just print this thing, um, okay, yeah, you cannot use elif um, because else uh, and num here, so it will do this, right? So what's happening here is that it's skipping the 0, right? So whenever there's a 0, it's just we are asking the for loop to just continue, just ignore the 0, right? For all the other numbers, it will go through the else statement, and then it will print it out, right? So this is something which you can use. So break and continue. So continue is something which you want to skip to the next index and not execute the the statements below it. It won't break the loop. It will we will want the loop to continue, um, not to break, like in the break statement, right? So that's what is the use of continue. You want to use a continue here, right? um, so that's for loops. Again, for break statements, if I had for I in range 0 to 10, and then if I had for j in range 0 to, let's say, 5, if j is equal, okay, j is equal to 4, then break um, else print j. And then so you see here I'm using two loops, right? So initially I had a for loop, which is for I running through this this range 0 to 10. And then inside this there's another loop running. So basically you want to put an indentation. This is called as an indentation. So you can see here everywhere I'm doing an indentation, right? Inside the for loop, you want this this condition to hold, right? It's all in the same line and it's all indented, right? It's inside, there's a spacing from here, right? So that's the same thing. So inside the for loop there's this another for loop, and again there's an indentation and then this condition, right? um, so what's happening is that first the Python will go through this loop. So for I in range 0 to 10, so it will access 0 first. So I is 0, then it will go inside, and then it will start this loop for j in range 0 to 5. So j will become 0, and then it will try to execute this one, right? So now it's in this it's in this loop, right? It will keep doing this loop, and only after this whole thing is done, it will go and execute the, go into the next instance of I. So you want to do something with I as well. So let me say print I, right? Let's see what happens here. Okay, so this is a lengthy one, so maybe you want to change it to, let's say, 4, and this is 3, and then 5. This is a shorter one. So what happens here is that initially I will become 0, and then it will enter this loop. So j becomes 0, and then it will basically execute this code, right? If j is 3, break else print j. So j will become 1, and then it will become 2, and then when it became 3, it will just break out, right? It won't print 3, it will just break out. When it breaks out, it will print I. So the I was 0, you see? So started with 0, and then all of them are j, and then it's printing out the I, right? Corresponding to this particular I, right? So do two things here. So I use this code just to demonstrate that break means breaking out of the immediate loop, right? Not the bigger loop, right? The immediate one. It will break out of this one. when it breaks out, whatever is the statement after the for loop, right? So you see this indentation of both of these statements are the same, right? These two are the same distance from the left hand side. So these two are, because they are the same level, that means once it comes out of the for loop, it will execute, Python will execute this statement, right? Once it has done this, it will go back to the for loop, will start the next instance of I, and then it will come inside, and then it will execute this loop, and then it will keep going, right? So break is for breaking out of the immediate loop, and also you need to take care of the indentation as well, right? Yeah, so that's what I wanted to demonstrate. Maybe if this is too confusing, I guess you can just put a star. Now if you do it, now you know that, the instances where your the bigger loop is being executed here, that corresponds to the star being shown in the output, right? So 0 star, that means the outer loop is being executed here, right? So yeah, so this is something we can do with for loops. Yeah, so I guess that's it for this video here. We discussed a lot about while loop, for loop, if statements. I think we will go into other topics in the next video. So yeah, so that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.